Too many arguments. Too many mixed facts that never added up. Too many late nights spent over bottles of wild turkey and bird dog that spun in circles with what-ifs and if-onlys. Sure, we agreed about some things. Perceived immutable truths about those gods from the Golden Age and beyond. But we didn't know enough. We needed to start at the beginning to figure out how we got to this place. And Amazon is the god of war, our man of tomorrow, wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt. We had to start from the beginning. So we went to the obvious choice. We went into a belfry and found Cain's man. Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Matthew.
And we're the DC Detectives.
It's our job to go back through the annals of DC history and chronicle the evolution of all your favorite heroes from start
to every reversible finish.
So we're going to be starting off with Batman today, starting off with Detective Comics 29, if memory serves.
I think it's actually 27, which was...
Am I really wrong? The second thing I say on the podcast is wrong.
It's entirely possible, but it's not that bad of a
It's 27, yeah.
It's number 27, coming out in the month of May of 1939. All 64 pages of Detective Comics, 6 of them were for Batman.
Not gonna lie, it's kind of entertaining seeing how condensed these stories are. It really changes the dynamic, especially compared to a 6-issue arc, everything being written for the trade now. For the record, I am a big proponent of writing for the trade. I like those styles of stories, at least full issue length. So all of this is going to be in my weird comfort zone.
And for me, it's really funny because I view this as the perfect length for Batman stories.
Really?
30 minutes. Batman is...
How did we never cover this in any of the prep?
No, well, I mean, just saying, like, Batman to me is Scooby-Doo. Everything Batman can do can be done in 30 minutes. There really isn't anything beyond that can be solved beyond one episode or one issue to me.
And that's where we're getting into interesting stuff. Like, one of the things I actually have written down is this Batman?
With Detective Comics number 27, the first 2 people you see in a Batman comic are Bruce Wayne in the most fantastic yellow checkered full suit outfit I've ever seen, and Commissioner Gordon in what appears to be the most hastily done and also painfully drawn hash suit. Like, it's all just lines and marks, and it's a white suit drawn to look like it's gray if you took every single line you could possibly do. And I'm really thinking that Bob Kane, who many of you probably know as the creator of Batman, just was like, shit, I forgot a pattern. Just do it. Just lines all over him.
Like, you know what it looks like to me? You know how everybody in elementary school, at least for our age, did the not the Sketcher S, but whatever that like skate logo was.
Oh, the Stussy logo?
What?
You don't...
I actually have no idea what this is.
So this is showing I'm from Southern California and you're from Northern California. Yes. First off, we're both from California.
Hi.
I'm from Huntington Beach. Matt, you're from Sunnyvale?
I'm born and raised in the Bay Area.
Yeah, okay, you're from Sunnyvale.
Trust me, a lot of people made the Buffy jokes. Although, apparently the Toys R Us is haunted.
Well, of course it is, because it's the Toys R Us and they have a giraffe as their mascot for no apparent reason. But the Stussy S, Stussy is a company that makes skatewear clothing. It's a clothing brand, and it's STU with an umlaut over the U, and then
because of course,
and then SSY, and then that's the logo and you're not...
Rest in peace, Lemmy.
Right. Oh God.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that, like, yes, that could be very mistaken for the style of Skechers
also
or skatewear.
That's that extreme simplicity. It's literally just...
It's just lines.
It's just lines.
It's just lines.
Up, down, up, down, up, down. It's like how a kid would draw teeth.
So Commissioner Gordon is essentially wearing a Stussy jacket. That's, I guess, what we're getting at right now.
A
stack it. And I want to point out the fact that the first 2 characters you meet are Batman and Commissioner Gordon, and how far apart those 2 characters really are now in the current meta of Batman. The fact that what we all think of as the Commissioner Gordon-Batman relationship, I think you would probably think of that relationship as Gordon knows that Batman is Batman, but he just ignores it. Or he's got a vague idea of who he is.
If nothing else, there is no Bruce Wayne and Commissioner Gordon relationship. That doesn't exist.
Unlike this first comic where Bruce and Commissioner Gordon are just like hanging out, and then Commissioner Gordon gets a call that there has been a murder. The Chemical King has been murdered. I'm assuming the Chemical King of the current city. We don't know what city this is. There is no Gotham at this point. Later it is established that they are in Manhattan. So this is New York. So the Chemical King of probably New York has been murdered. And Commissioner Gordon just says, I'm going there now. Like to come along? Like, there's no police protocol. Like, that's just a thing you could do with your young man friend that Commissioner Gordon has. He's just like,
that's a very interesting way of phrasing that.
His friend who happens to be a young gentleman. And Bruce's response is, oh well, nothing else to do, might as well. Like, yeah, that's like when you're hanging out with your buddy, you're just like, oh, by the way, there's a murder, do you want to come investigate with me? Like, that's a surefire way to not get anyone suspicious about what you like to do in your spare time, is to go to murder scenes with your friend who happens to be the police commissioner and just be like, well, I'm bored.
It's popcorn and a ride-along.
I, as a journalist who studied journalism, that's not how ride-alongs happen. You don't just be like, oh, I live with a cop. Hey, can I go with you to the crime that has been committed? And they're just like, no, you can't do that. So Bruce watches the commissioner commish, which is really strange, honestly, because the commissioner really shouldn't be trying to solve murders. He has detectives and police officers to be doing that. Like, he should be managing them.
Is he established as commissioner?
It does say first, literally the fourth word in Detective Comics is the home of commissioner. So,
and to be fair, there's the header.
Okay, we're not counting the header, but he shouldn't be doing this. This is not his job. His job is to make sure these guys do this job. But the Commissioner Gordon, as far as I understand it, not that I have a very vast knowledge of police hierarchy, should not be solving crimes. Mainly just going, are you solving this crime? Yes. How are you doing it? By the book. Good. And then walking away, or give me your badge and your weapon. That's what I imagine a commissioner does a lot of the day, is just asking for badges and weapons and saying, do it by the book. But Commissioner Gordon just ends up doing these things. It's really funny is that Bruce is just in the background in a majority of these panels, and you'd be very thrown off. Because with the way Commissioner Gordon is the focus of many of these panels, you would imagine he's Batman.
In fact, actually, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not until the third issue that it's actually officially like Bruce Wayne disappears and Batman reappears, and it's
correct,
like,
yes,
textually announced.
Yeah, so Bruce begins to investigate.
It's obvious, but
to us, yes, because we know better. But Bruce gets to go to starts investigating the murder, as there are people who are also on this list to be murdered, and this is very interesting because this is not what we think of the Batman costume to look like. He's got very short bat ears. He has the utility belt. He's got the scalloped cape. He's got the bat underoos on, much like Superman has his red underoos. He's got a bat symbol on him, but he just looks homemade, I guess is the term.
It's not a bad way of putting it.
He looks like he's well crafted in his own sewing room, and it's very well done. And good on you for Bob Kane to, within literally 3 issues, evolving Batman to look like the Batman we know. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, body count 1, Bruce throws a dude off of a roof in a rooftop tussle, and these guys who are, suspects. Yeah, he just karate chucks a dude off of a 2-story house, and that guy looks pretty dead on the face down on the pavement in one of those panels, and he's just like, oh good, I'm out of here and I'm going to the next guy.
For the record, this is going to be one of the things that we probably bring up when we talk later about, is this actually Batman?
Yes, for those of you playing at home, I will be counting body count, so you won't have to. We'll have nice little pictures. But yeah, and we'll even be counting the people we think should be dead.
Probably that person is in that category.
That person should
be honest.
That is a very nebulous life state at this point for this man.
We don't know how high up that was, but we can assume high enough for crippling injury.
Yeah, he's either a paraplegic or he's dead. Because that is pavement down there. Because if he hit head first, that man is not walking up or waking up. So Batman goes to the next victim, finds the guy who is trapped under the largest bell jar I've ever seen, which, according to the villain, is a gas chamber used to kill guinea pigs to experiment with. What sized guinea pigs are these?
So I wrote stuff down.
Oh, did you?
Should I go into...
Yes, please do. This is actually important.
So I actually spent probably an hour looking up euthanasia of various veterinary animals.
That's not going to get you on a watch list anyway.
I used incognito mode, but
no, you're fine at that point.
It literally, if you bring up incognito mode in Chrome, it says it does not protect you from secret agents.
Well, what's the euthanasia you looked up?
Gassing is not a recommended method.
So not only is this guy mean, he's just doing it the worst way too.
There are qualifications. It is specifically, quote, acceptable with conditions.
You don't gas them while awake.
You don't gas them,
aware.
They really don't recommend it.
Well, I would imagine that is terrifying and horrible and mean.
That is actually one of the big things that they go into is make sure that when you euthanize an animal, it is in a way that doesn't cause it panic. And apparently guinea pigs panic a lot.
One would not know that from the gentle exterior of a guinea pig, but apparently they panic a lot. So Batman, arrives on the scene as this mini-boss type character is about to bell-jar gas this poor other chemical king. There are several chemical kings of Manhattan, and he breaks through the bell jar with a handy-dandy, I want to say, adjustable wrench.
Yeah. It looks like the archetypal spanner.
Yeah, it looks like a spanner that apparently he has on him, on his person. That's something to keep in the Bat utility belt.
Did they really not say, like, he got it from somewhere?
Like, he just has it. I'm looking at it right now. Like, he's running in. Oh, no, he seizes a wrench from a table and leaps to the gas. So somewhere
not pictured.
In this chemist room, there's a spanner wrench for reasons. Plot relevant.
For the record, it is important to note, this is the era of voiceover. Everything is happening in captions.
Yeah, there's a lot of narrator boxes happening or narrative boxes.
And then this happened.
Yeah, it's a lot of the Batman greets Jennings with a flying tackle, in which I've never seen anyone tackle anyone sideways, but he's doing it.
Yeah, no, that's weird. That's weird.
That's how the NFL tackles now, by the way. And so he gets this guy, he beats him up, and then the real bad guy reveals himself, and he gets in a tussle with the victim, and Batman is like, nah, none of that. And as he's holding him and kind of just it's over. Batman has won. This other guy is safe. This guy, however, pulls a gun from his coat pocket. Batman punches him into an acid tank that also happens to be in this room, in a very Disney villain death, where we don't see the body, we just see a splash of acid, and he goes, a fitting end for his kind.
I was going to say that doesn't sound very Disney-ish, like disappearing into a vat of acid, but now I'm remembering how Scar died.
Yeah, like Scar.
Like the pan away as all of the hyenas close in. That's dark.
Or the dude from Princess and the Frog getting pulled into the Nether Realm.
What?
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, he gets Ilyana Rasputin.
It's really interesting, yeah. It's actually it's one of my favorite Disney villain deaths. Or Hades getting pulled into the River Styx whirlpool at the end of Hercules, which is super messed up to watch.
It's been days since I watched that.
That's on Netflix, I think. But okay, so that happens. Batman does his Batman disappearance for the first time ever. Also on this page, where the guy's like, "Wow, that sucks," and then he goes, "How can I ever thank you?" Oh my God, he's gone. And the next panel is Bruce and Commissioner Gordon talking again. Commissioner Gordon is... I love this. This is a great analysis right away of how Bruce Wayne is supposed to be observed. Because this is Commissioner Gordon after Bruce Wayne has gone. Bruce Wayne is a nice young chap, but he certainly must lead a boring life. Seems disinterested in everything. And then the next two panels are the reveal that Bruce Wayne is in fact Batman.
Okay, so we were actually wrong on that. It did actually happen in the first issue.
Yeah, it is the first issue. And then, so of the 64 pages of Detective Comics 27, 6 of them are devoted to Batman.
To his credit, cover.
Yeah, and but he does have the cover of Detective Comics, which is the iconic cover of Batman holding a dude in a headlock while swinging from I would say a Spider-Man vantage point.
Yeah, it's actually exactly the same kind of pose, just slightly different angles.
Right.
One thing I didn't realize, though, it actually has shading on the outfit. It actually has, like, the highlights.
Almost muscle shading?
Yeah, well, just defining the lines. Like, hey, legs are cylindrical as compared to the rest of everything.
That is a credit to Bob Kane and probably the colorist at the time. I don't know if it was also Bob Kane. But the next group of stories...
One thing I do want to go over.
Yeah.
A weird factoid. I have stumbled across a number of weird factoids. That may wind up being my role on this. So I was curious as to what kind of gas would be used to take
anesthetize
care of
guinea pigs.
And I did the natural thing, and thankfully it sounds like probably not necessarily Zyklon B, thankfully.
Okay.
I was wondering whether we were going to make the Nazi connection a couple issues early.
A couple issues, because we are going
Foreshadowing.
There's going to be some Nazis.
Well, that and also just, this is being published in 1939.
Correct, but
bad things are happening.
Batman, yeah,
And,
so we'll get there.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but both Finger and Kane were Jewish, right?
Yeah.
So they probably had a lot of awareness of what was
If I'm not
going
mistaken, Gardner
on.
Fox was as well, but I won't speak for that as I don't really know that well.
So thankfully, that connection is not there. However, apparently, there is a DC villain who appeared, I actually don't know how many times, named Zyklon. It gets better.
Oh, dear.
DC villain
Oh, dear.
who was a Nazi speedster,
shit.
naturally. Speedster. Quote from the Wikipedia entry, and this terrifies me to think about.
Thank you, Dr. Internet.
It is unknown whether he can tap into the Speed Force.
Oh, no! Oh, my God. So for those of you unfamiliar with DC, because I'm really sorry if this is your first foray into DC, The Flash, he's got a terrific television show on the CW right now, creates the Speed Force when he becomes the Flash, when he gets hit by lightning in his...
I forgot that was the creation.
That is, yeah, he gets hit by lightning in his chemistry lab as he's at work being a forensic scientist.
Wait. Lightning created a fundamental force of nature.
Yeah, isn't that weird? He fundamentally creates the Speed Force. So I think this is actually an instance where the Nazi can't access the Speed Force because it doesn't exist.
Well, I think he is a Nazi sympathizer or a neo-Nazi in the year's future. I don't think he's necessarily Nazi.
He's not a Speed Force Nazi who then I get what you... We're gonna have some puns, and I'm drawing.
That's
a line
not
with
a
that.
pun. That's a portmanteau.
Okay, well, we're not gonna have that portmanteau.
Okay, that's
so.
fair. That's fair.
Moving on, Detective Comics number 28. Get ready, folks. This is gonna be a long one. Not the issue. This one's actually pretty mundane, but there is it's called Frenchie Blake's Jewel. Batman essentially fights a jewel fence or a guy who's trying to steal a jewel. It's not really important. We're gonna stress at this point. Most of the issues' plot relevancy is very low because there is no core canon. At least not early, until they begin to recycle villains.
And when they bring in Robin.
Correct. So, this is another Batman fighting gangsters story. Which starts off with, why does Batman not have gloves? Why does Batman not have gloves in this first... And in this entire issue, Batman is missing gloves.
You mentioned it, and let me actually
and I
see.
Visually verified that Batman has
God.
flesh-colored hands.
Yeah, no, and wow, he's wearing a black jumpsuit.
It's quite strange.
Wow, all of that is... And the coloration on that is wrong. Okay, never mind. Later shots actually look right. But yeah, he is not wearing gloves.
For reference, we are looking through Batman Chronicles Volume 1. But for those of you playing at home and you want to follow along with us, you can purchase these fine things at what we would say your local comic book store if you have one available to you. Yeah. Otherwise, online, you can order it from Amazon.
Lee's Comics is the one we go to, right?
We go to Lee's Comics in San Mateo. They're fantastic people. They're really great.
Highly recommended. They had a pretty good price on Wicked and Divine, which I am very much enjoying and chomping at the bit for the next volume.
Batman, on this first page, already kills a guy. And it really is just... It's Batman foils a jewel heist. And this is probably, however, the first... Oh, by the way, Batman's car is a sweet cherry red 1930 sports car. There is no Batmobile, folks. He is driving around in a bright red car, very fast, in the bat suit.
Okay, it doesn't look like it has plates. At least not in that picture.
No visible plates, but it's really strange to me that, like, he could be in traffic and someone could, in theory, just look over and there's some dude in a suit and he's just like, how's it going? But Batman, this is the first instance that I like of Batman's interrogation tactics where he wraps Frenchie Blake, the mastermind guy in this.
Frenchie Blake?
That's his name, Frenchie Blake.
I forgot about that.
I didn't. It's great.
God, and it's Frenchie with a Y.
Yeah, and he wraps him up with Batman also is using silken rope, but I would hazard a guess that nylon would be better than the silken ropes that Batman is using to swing throughout the city with and tie people up with. But he hangs Frenchie Blake out a window and forces him to he gets a confession out of him.
Oh, and he's actually got a good amount of distance there. That looks
he's at least a floor
he's
below
holding him
him.
down a floor, yeah.
And that's Batman effectively torturing someone.
Which we will see again and
which
again.
is great, because
up to the present era.
Because that is the fear tactics we associate with Batman. It's just like, swear to me!
That's an interesting point. I'm thinking it through right now, and in the first 2 issues, other than that, do we see the intimidation, the strike fear into the heart of criminals?
He's just beating people up, which is, hey, and then he leaves the guy on the stoop of the police department with a note that says, Dear Commissioner, I thought you might like to have the leader of the Jewel Gang. Also, leaving his confession and stolen jewels. Till we meet again, I remain the... And then he draws the bat symbol. Which, way to go, Bruce. I mean, you probably made this suit all by yourself. You could probably draw that. So good for him.
Well done.
We're about to get into the Dr. Death story, which Matt and I found particular joy in, because there's just a whole lot of mess going on with this one.
Let me clarify. In addition to everything else, I found particular joy in the first 2 panels. Now, remember how we talked earlier about the hyphenation?
Yes.
It gets better.
Does it?
Yes.
Or worse?
Here's the header. First off, it's the quotation marks Bat-man. Now, if I'm going to try to pronounce this, the Batman.
Yeah,
that sounds too natural. That you
almost
can't hear the
like how one would pronounce Man-Bat, like the villain Man-Bat.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you can kind of hear the hyphen there. But here's the thing: take a look right down below it.
Oh,
the Batman meets Dr. Death.
Oh shit!
There is no quotation mark.
They screwed that
up.
There
is no hyphenation.
Who wrote this? Is this Gardner Fox?
I hear
it is Gardner Fox. It's way to go, Gardner. That's all you, buddy.
So but it gets better. It gets better. Flip back over to it.
Oh man!
Look below in the first real panel. The Batman. There is a clear space there,
and no hyphen.
And no hyphen. We have the Batman, the Batman, and the Batman.
I like to point out that Dr. Death looks like a cut-rate Nosferatu with a beard. Because he's got the vampire ears.
Well, funny you should mention vampires.
No, it's not. We're gonna get into that. But Dr. Death has I would say a cohort here who is just so racist in so many ways. I want to say it's Jabba,
probably
spelled Jabah. I want to say it probably sounds like Jabba as in the Hutt, but
shall I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
exposit.
So I actually tried to look this up, and it's entirely possible that there's a I guess anglicization or transliteration of Jabba. So it's noted Jabba. We're assuming that's a pronunciation. Is actually Indian. They just say Indian. They don't say anything more beyond that.
No East Indies, no.
Presumably somewhere on the Indian subcontinent, but no specification of region. And at this point, there was no separate India or Pakistan, etc., etc. But I did a lookup, and I could not find anything that was specifically Jabba. The closest that I could find from a Google search was Jabhat al-Nusra, which is Al-Qaeda in Syria.
Oh, God. Oh, God. We're just going all over the place with this already.
Yep. It's also worth noting, I tried to do some comparative analysis of various turban types.
Okay. Because he is wearing a turban. It's a blue turban over a red shirt and then blue pants with a white sash.
All in primary colors. However, I'm pretty sure that's the turban of a Sikh. Which, I freely admit, all of my knowledge comes from a little bit of exposure to secondhand stuff and Wikipedia, but it's very much anti-tyranny. So we've got some dark Jedi stuff going on here.
Yeah, there's
he has turned to the dark side to work for
Dr. Death. Literally the first name.
You had to be more dramatic. I did a dramatic pause there. You had to come in with a voice.
You did. I'm sorry. What is he? Mentok the Mind Taker from Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law? I can do that. Mentok the Mind Taker. Sorry.
If you want, you can do that.
That's, to me, what Dr. Death sounds like. So the problem with this is Dr. Death feels Batman is an actual threat to him, so he calls Batman out in the newspaper, which of course Bruce Wayne, as a highfalutin rich type in the 30s, reads all the time. And in public notices, he sees a call out from Dr. Death, so he has to go to the U.S. Post Office, where there is a letter addressed to John Jones. And we're both kind of looking at each other like someone addressed like very, very early, someone was like, by the way, that's going to be what the Martian Manhunter's called.
When did he come out?
Not now.
I didn't even think of that when I initially read it.
So it's John Jones is the pseudonym that the Dr. Death puts out, and Batman answers it, and it says at 10 p.m. tonight, this place, this time, we're gonna fight and we're gonna duke it out. And Batman, we see the first, other than the silken rope at this point, we see the first Bat gear, which is choking gas pellets and suction glove knee pads and gloves. And the gloves, I use as a loose term because they look like oven mitts with suction cups on them.
Really do.
And Batman is getting more and more Batman-like. The ears are getting longer in these issues. So we're seeing him, go to this location. He climbs up with his suction cup hands and his silken rope. And he gets into a trap, and of course he, beats the crap out of these guys, and he uses his choking gas pellets to get away, and he's doing pretty good here, but he does get shot. So he gets shot in the shoulder, and he does a lot before he seeks medical attention. He climbs down the building, gets into his car, changes back into his Bruce Wayne garb, goes to a payphone, tells someone at the Daily Globe to write as Batman, "You're on, Dr. Death," and then goes to, I kid you not, the Wayne family doctor, who just says, "It's all right now, Bruce, but how did you shoot yourself when there are no powder marks on your flesh?" And Bruce just responds, "I do funny things sometimes, Doc. I'll tell you all about it someday. Thanks for everything," and nothing more is said about that.
For the record, okay, target shooting, I suppose you could do with a pistol,
but accidentally in your shoulder.
Okay, even then, that's stupid and hard for... I have to imagine this is the first person who figures out who Batman is.
I want to say this is an early precursor to Alfred. The family doctor is probably the closest thing we get to an Alfred-type character, just referenced in one panel.
It could have been that, but I would argue that the implausibility, it might actually be the first thing that says, we need somebody who's on the inside as a character who
can just take care of
him and takes care of it. So I actually wonder if it's almost
closer to a Lucius Fox character.
Yeah.
But we will say there is no Alfred. There is no seen butler in any of Bruce Wayne's home shots. So Bruce just happens to spy Jabba. I don't want to say it wrong. Jabba. We're going to say Jabba.
As near as I can tell, it is not actually a name. They just came up with it.
Got it. Okay, so he spies him on the street about to kill another person because you're in New York City and you just happen to see the only Sikh turbaned Indian walking around about to kill someone. And he saves the guy, follows Jabba back to Dr. Death's place, gets in, beats the crap out of both of them, but in doing so, throws a fire extinguisher at Dr. Death in his laboratory. The fire extinguisher explodes and presumably kills Dr. Death. We're going to put a question mark body count put there until we get to the next issue where...
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think... Literally, it is the next...
Literally the next issue.
And it's right there.
In Detective Comics 30, August 1939.
It's reasonable for the people reading this at the time, or even reading this, in the moment of reading it, to wonder, is he actually dead? But you've read it, and you are literally flipping the page.
I was just trying
to... You put a question mark,
I was trying to be dramatic. I was trying to match your dramatic
pause. Had a time to live of 10 seconds.
It did. It had a timeline. And there was a shot clock on it. So Batman starts to investigate some quirky goings-on about this mysterious death of a man who was poisoned, which, of course, he's like, well, obviously this is Dr. Death, again, even though I just saw him burn up in a fiery mass. Batman goes back to Dr. Death's, goes back to the place that he thinks is going to be robbed, goes into the safe, presumably takes the item out for safekeeping, but we see a fully bandaged-faced man who kind of looks like the Invisible Man, with another Asian counterpart.
Well, turn the page.
Who is, what's his name?
Actually, I guess that's technically true. Turn the page.
His name's Mikhail.
There's a line. There's a line somewhere here where...
One of Dr. Death's Cossacks.
Yes. Okay? So for the record...
Cossack spelled Cossacks.
Read the entire line. I think that might actually be correct. I'm not... it's probably just a K.
One of Dr. Death's Cossacks, such as Jabba. I'll follow him to Dr. Death.
So for the record, the Cossacks do admittedly, okay, Russian border territories tended to have some amount of Cossack territory. But lumping together Indian Sikhs with Cossacks?
Not okay.
Not okay.
Not remotely.
No.
So this guy is dressed in a white flowy shirt with green trousers, a cape, a red fez.
It's not quite
and
a
very
fez.
Big hoop earrings. And I want to say, even though the term is very bad, he looks like a gypsy.
I don't know.
Like a very stereotyped
I'm
version.
Think of the stereotype, and I actually can't picture one in my head.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
No more stereotypes than you,
another, maybe. I actually did look it up, and the headwear is about correct. Maybe not.
Maybe possibly. So he follows this guy, around to try and track him back to Dr. Death. He goes back to this guy's apartment to see if he can get some information. And the guy wakes up while he's in the apartment. He is fighting him. And Batman jumps out the window, throws his silken rope. And as the guy looks out the window to see where Batman is, Batman swings back. And there is a sickening snap as the Cossack's neck breaks under the mighty pressure of the Batman's foot. He just straight up murders him. He steps on his neck and kills him. And that's harsh.
A bit. It's not even like the rush of combat. It's...
he had gotten away, and he came back to just kill him. So that's another one on the body count there.
It's not even just a caption. It is straight up.
It's a full panel of him killing him. There's an onomatopoeia of snap. It's bad. It's not very good. That's a point against Batman and his morality.
He Gwen Stacy'd him.
Oh, God. Oh,
it's got the sound effect.
It does. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And he goes back to the guy who is supposed to be buying the diamond or the jewel or whatever, and he finds out it's Dr. Death, who looks now like he's got a shrunken head for a head.
It's green skin version of Lopan.
Oh, goodness gracious it is. With no nose.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
okay.
Gonna,
so he's a Yuuzhan Vong.
That's gonna, yeah, he's a Yuuzhan Vong. So we're gonna show that online. So we got 2 issues here to get through that are really really something.
All right, hang on. One thing that we need to think about first, though. This is something that occurred to me when looking up hyphenated names, because often surnames are hyphenated. So there's a thing in Germany, apparently.
Yes.
This is all Wikipedia knowledge, so call
Thank you,
me out
Dr.
if I
Internet.
get it wrong. Dr. Internet is our best friend. Allianznamen. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that.
Okay.
But the idea being that when a man and a woman get married, they actually take on an alliance name, where it is a combination of the 2 names. For instance, say John Smith and Patty McFace got married. Shut up.
Patty
I'm on the spot.
I made a face at Patty McFace.
Then they would be the Smith McFace family.
Yeah.
So it would be John Smith McFace.
Correct.
Here's the thing. Their kids would then take on the father's name. So they would have their son, Awesome Smith.
Okay.
I cannot, ever since then, think about Bat-Man except as an Allianznamen.
You brought that back so well. You circled back around to being mad about hyphen names again, and I'm impressed by it.
Here's where it gets better. Think about it. You have, Bat-Man. So you have Bruce Bat got married to Patty Man.
Oh, God.
Gets better.
Oh, no, it
Think
doesn't.
about Man Bat. So presumably Bruce had a sister who got married to a man from the Man Clan.
Oh, God.
And think about every superhero who's blank hyphen man. There must just be an entire giant Man Clan.
Oh my God, you went there. Oh man, I was gonna make a joke like man is a common name like Antilles, but
that works too.
I like Man Clan better. So wow, I'm having trouble recovering. We're trying to move on. So next is a series of two issues that actually the second sort of instance of continuity, because of course the Dr. Death issues promote a sense of continuity with the same guy coming back. We have the Master Monk issues, and I gotta tell you, there's just...
Master Monk or Mad Monk?
It's Master Monk.
Really? Oh, I misread that.
It is the Master Monk. And the best part about these is it just introduces a whole lot of shaking going on in the Batman universe. First of all, Batman has a fiancée, or rather, Bruce has a fiancée.
That's
Julie.
an important distinction.
Yeah, Batman is not a fiancée. Bruce does. It's Julie Madison. Julie is a classic beauty of the 1930s, I believe. She looks like Lupe Velez. For those of you who are familiar with 1930s movie stars, if you're not, Google Lupe Velez, and that's kind of what Julie Madison looks like. Also, I really hope the Bat car is also not Bruce Wayne's car, because Batman puts Julie in the red car, and presumably Julie would just be like, "Are you in my boyfriend's car? Are you driving me back to my place?
He's got a garage full of cars.
Are you driving me back to my place in my boyfriend's car?" So Julie is caught trying to murder a man for reasons unknown, but Batman recognizes, because Batman's Batman, that she's hypnotized. So he takes her to a doctor and says, you need to get checked out. And the doctor has probably my favorite line in all the comics. Yes, an ocean voyage to Paris, and perhaps later to Hungary, the land of history and werewolves. Werewolves is underlined here.
Is that the first time we've seen an underline in the comic?
Oh no, I don't believe it is, but I just need to pause and just listen to that. The land of history and werewolves. I really hope the Hungarian Tourism Board is making a lot of money off of that slogan. That guy must have gotten super promoted. So Bruce is like, yeah, that's a good idea. So let's put you on a boat to, first of all, a boat to Paris. I'm going to let you think about that for a second. For those of you geographically challenged, Paris is not an oceanside city. Bruce says, yeah, go ahead, Julie. And says that he'll follow her in the bat plane, essentially, which is super cool.
For the record, it is actually kind of a bat helicopter. You can see. It is essentially a monowing plane with a helicopter rotor above it. And it turns out, like, I initially thought, okay, that can't be actual design. Like, I thought it was just, how do we make it seem like it can stay up? Well, okay, let's put a rotor on it. That is actually what helicopters were looking like at that time. I actually did some research on this.
Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad to know that there is some sort of historical grounding, but not so much in the fact that he gets in it, flies out to sea, puts it on autopilot above the ship, and it apparently flies itself.
Yeah, they didn't last that long in the air.
And goes on to Julie's ship. Encounters her as Batman. So Batman just shows up on Julie's ship, which, if Julie was a smart broad, which I like to think she is, she's like, how'd you get here? What? How are you here? How do you know I'm here? What is happening? But that's quickly forgotten because the Master Monk is on the boat as well. Batman has a moment. Also, we see the first instance of the Batarang, which is super awesome. He uses the Batarang, the Master Monk dodges it, he gets back on his helicopter, and then he lands in Paris. There's a gap in time there, I think, that we're just going to gloss over.
It's a stealth helicopter, don't worry.
Okay, so he finds Julie in Paris, only to be accosted by what I can only describe as a Sasquatch.
It might be supposed to be a gorilla. It's written as a gorilla. Specifically, what do they call it?
It's
actually, yeah, it's never.
It's never. It isn't when it's first introduced. I honestly, guys, it's a Sasquatch as far as I'm concerned. The Master Monk has Sasquatches in Paris.
I thought
Batman jumps. Well,
wait.
Yeah.
Sasquatch is in Paris. Werewolves in London.
Well, duh, because Yetis aren't going to go anywhere near London. So Batman jumps out of the window out of this trap and jumps into another trap that the Master Monk has for him. Batman uses his Batarang, as only Batman does, to get out of the trap, only to chase after the Master Monk again to fall into a giant cage with the Sasquatch. And I think, yeah, it is called a gigantic gorilla.
Yeah, okay, I thought I remembered seeing gorilla in there somewhere.
Which is impressive, because that is a big gorilla. It is...
And it's not walking hunched over at all.
No.
It's not doing the knuckle
And it's
walk.
got talon claws?
Oh, God, you're right.
It is double the size of Batman. It is a King Kong-sized gorilla. So this is a Sasquatch. We're gonna call a monster a monster. This is a Sasquatch.
Yeah.
So Batman chases after Julie, who's in this car in his Batplane. He rescues her, and we think that is the end of the story until the next issue.
But it is the end of the Sasquatch, right?
It is the end of the Sasquatch.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We don't actually ever see anything more of this.
No, we don't ever actually see
this wonder of nature is completely glossed over.
Of course, because it's actually a gorilla. Duh. And all those
For the record, plot holes happen a lot at this point.
So Batman sets his automatic controls for Hungary, home of the vicious monk and his werewolves. The next issue, Batman stops a stagecoach in Hungary and frees a woman and brings her back to where he's keeping Julie, and the woman's like, hey, my name's Dala. I seem to have been kidnapped by your friend here. This is weird. And Julie's like, yeah, he kind of does that. And so Batman leaves the two of them in this room together, and then hears a scream, sees Dala sort of mummy walking out of the room, and then she smacks him with an Oscar?
It's close.
It almost looks like she hits him with an Oscar statue.
It is very much a golden statuette of a humanoid form. It's an Oscar.
It's an Oscar. And then he's like, "What? That sucks. What a bitch." And then goes back into Julie's room, and Julie has 2 fang marks on her neck. So this is where I got lost. We're in the land of Hungary, a land of history and werewolves, and suddenly we're getting vampire hints?
I can escalate this.
Can you?
I did some research.
Yeah, please do so.
Yes. So at this point in time, Hungary was actually building up for World War II. Specifically, it had aligned somewhat with the Anti-Comintern Pact and was using some of Hitler's political pressure to regain territorial losses after World War I. Seriously, they lost 72% of their territory after World War I. Hungary was not in a good place. So, just like Germany, it was heavily hit by the economic depression. It went right-wing. But here's the thing. They were, in fact, the leading party. There was a right-wing authoritarian government in Hungary. These are probably Nazi werewolf vampires.
Did we just make a Grindhouse movie?
Ah, goddamn.
So we've got your Nazi Hungary werewolves that are vampires. And Batman catches up to Dala and he's like, you gonna talk about how you just tried to vampire my girlfriend? And she's like, look, take me to the monk and we'll fight him. So he's like, yeah, alright, that sounds like a good plan. He goes with her to the monk. She's like, just kidding. I'm lowering you into a trap. And the monk hypnotizes Batman. And he's like, good work, Dala. He summons Julie so that both Batman and Julie are at this castle now. And then the monk turns into a werewolf that looks very similar to a badger.
I was going to go with a Wolverine, actually.
Okay.
An actual Wolverine.
An actual Wolverine, not Logan or James Howlett, for those of you in the know. And he summons other werewolves. So the Master Monk's a werewolf. Dala's a vampire. Julie is sucking the paper cut on her finger away from being a vampire, I'm assuming, at this point.
It depends on what rules you use.
I'm going.
We might have a Jubilee situation.
We may have a Jubilee situation. Batman gets trapped with a bunch of werewolves, escapes
Code Jubilee.
Yeah, Coach Jubilee. Batman escapes the pit full of werewolves, like Batman will do, and melts down a silver statue, finds the Master Monk in his coffin, and Dala in her coffin, and then shoots them both with a gun. Now, with bullets made from the silver statue that he melted down. So now the monk's a vampire, who's also a werewolf, and we went back and forth on this for a little while. I'm gonna go with, this is either close to Elder Scrolls rules, where you can kind of be whatever mythical creature you want, as long as you don't be something diametrically opposite magically. Mm-hmm. But also, I think he's a Hexen wolf, which is a person who turns into a wolf creature with use of magical artifacts, and you think he's a lichen.
I was guessing something along those lines, or possibly a loop. Well, probably not a loop guru, because we didn't see him actually putting on a wolf skin.
Correct.
But this does not seem like it ascribes to at least any tradition of werewolf lycanthropic mythology that we can recognize, but it's also worth noting this was before Anne Rice, so all of these things were not locked in.
So we're gonna go to the last issue we're gonna cover in this. This is Batman versus the Dirigible of Doom. This is the first instance of Batman's backstory that we get. It is a page and a half of Bruce's backstory, and it's very interesting that we're just like, my parents got mugged, my dad got shot, my mom got shot, I'm sad. I have a chemistry set, I'm lifting a barbell, I'm by myself, oh look a bat, I'm Batman.
It is a montage with narration.
It's an 80s montage with a narration, and if only movies were that quick with the Batman mythos.
That would be interesting.
So the next panel, this is also, or the next page, this is the first mention of a city name that Batman is in, and it is Manhattan. So that was from the very beginning we discussed that this was Manhattan. And there's a red dirigible shooting red beams on the city and collapsing things and blowing things up, and Bruce is seen helping the survivors, and these people refer to themselves as the Scarlet Horde, and they come to rule the world. Do not resist us, or the rays strike again. So Batman's just like, this is bullshit. Those red beams from the dirigible, my file might help me. What file does he have on red beams from dirigibles? That's a very specific file.
Is this the first instance of Batman is prepared for everything?
It must be, because he's also got the full Batman suit now.
That is actually very true.
The closest to the Batman look as we've ever seen it.
Let's actually flip back really quick and take a
look
at
if you look at
the Monk story.
If the Master Monk, it's still a little...
Yeah, it's a little bit sharper.
Still a little sharp, but this is the Batman suit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Batman knows who these people are. He goes, oh, Professor Carl Kruger, released from insane asylum, suffered from Napoleon complex, working on new type of death ray. Obviously, it's this guy, because I've
actually Napoleon complex?
Yeah, Napoleon. Guys, by the way, this guy is short, he's fat, he looks like Napoleon, he's got a German name, and he's got dirigibles.
He's Hitler.
He's Hitler.
Yeah.
He's Hitler. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, because this issue came out in November of 1939, which is when...
Well, so presumably it went to presses a little bit before that, but as of November 1st, 1939, Poland had already surrendered. Danzig had been annexed, and I feel like there may have actually been an annexation of Polish territory. So the war was on. Meanwhile, the war had been on for days in China with the Japanese invasion. This was right when things were going on. It wasn't yet clear how big it would get necessarily, but England, or more precisely, Britain and France were already committed. They had joined the war. This was right in the middle of when everything was going down, so it is entirely reasonable to read the dirigible and the Scarlet Hordes as the war fears, the idea that the bomber might be flying overhead. Maybe not. There wasn't the fear of necessarily nuclear annihilation at that point, but there was certainly that fear that
stuff is going on.
Enough bombers go over, you have that fear that that we might get knocked out even before we get a chance to fight.
So mind you, in most of the way this is kind of probably written at the time, the story is written a month beforehand, and then it is published the month afterwards.
Presumably.
So we're assuming that the reason the Master Monk stuff is happening when stuff is going down is because it's happening as these guys are writing these comics, and then they're seeing it happen, and they decided, let's make a little bit more of a topical issue to...
I think in this case it's absolutely true.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm saying like while Master Monk is happening, they decide that it's being published. They're like, let's write a topical issue. So that's why it happens sometime after the timeline or during the timeline if things are occurring globally. It's an interesting thing to think about, is that they were probably writing these in a timeline in which they're watching things occur, and then they decided to write something that's a little bit topical. So Batman, goes to fight Kruger and destroy his dirigible, and in the ensuing tussles in the hangar, gets knocked out, but gets up enough to switch a guy into the Batman costume, switches into a guard outfit, and lets Kruger kill the guy in the Batman suit. So I'm going to count that as a body count for Batman. Batman then goes home, sprays the bat plane with some sort of chemical that he makes to counteract the beams from the dirigible, gets in like a dogfight with the dirigible, blows it up, and then kills Kruger, who's also flying in a plane. I'm going to be Gimli here and say the dirigible only counts as one. But there's a dirigible crew, and he kills several people, clearly manning that dirigible. But it's one. It's one kill. We don't see any bodies, but the dirigible has people on it, so I'm going to say it counts as one. Yeah. And then Kruger's a 2, so he's killed 3 people in this episode. Issue. Mm-hmm. And that's the last issue we're going to go into right now for this episode. And for purposes of, just expanding a little bit, I did some cost analysis for Batman. The gear that he's got. And choking gas pellets, you can make easy pepper spray. I don't know really how hard it is to aerosol pepper spray or liquid into a gas form, so you can have it as a pellet. He could make that pretty easily by himself. A plane, though, I'm going to say right now an Aviat Husky, which has a travel range of about 550 nautical miles, which is about roughly 575 miles. Sorry, I didn't do the kilometer calculation for you on the metric system. That's about $241,000. An Avia B-35 Czechoslovakian fighter plane in 1930. Similar design to the Batplane. I'm assuming it's a monowing plane with a propeller in front, one-person cab. That is a 308 mile per hour max speed, 500 kilometer, 311 miles max distance.
It can definitely keep up with a cruise ship.
Yeah, that's a thing that's available. Industrial suction cups. 100-pound
capacity. About that phrase just entertains me.
Industrial suction cups. They have 100-pound capacity, 4 inches in diameter. You can get about 4 of them for about $22. Now, I'm saying. So that's a plausible thing he could probably have. A boomerang. A cold steel boomerang costs about $30 now, so you can probably buy a boomerang. I looked at car bodies in the 1930s. He has, I want to say, an Alfa Romero 6C or a BMW 327 for his car, which at the time was probably about $1,500 to $3,000 in 1938 or 39. So he's got to have, I think we decided like close to $800,000 is probably the appropriate amount of money that Bruce Wayne has to have at this point in time. Which is not a lot per se in what we normally assume Bruce Wayne has as money, but when you think about it, there is no mention of Wayne Enterprises. It is just referred to as a trust, his father's trust. So Bruce is a reasonably wealthy individual living in New York City, close to the end of the Great Depression, but during the New Deal, during isolationism. This is the hero that people are reading. A rich, bored trust fund kid.
Specifically, though, I would actually clarify one thing. This is one of the heroes.
One of the heroes, currently, yes, because Superman is occurring at the same time. But
and specifically taking a very different slant. And I actually think it's interesting that we've chosen to start with Batman because it's such a different thing than
absolutely.
Superman. And by any rational standard, we should probably have started with Superman. However, by starting with Batman and being 3 months, or no, about a year later, if memory serves, I guess about 7 months between the introduction of Superman and the introduction of Batman.
Something like that, I want to say.
By starting with Batman, first off, we're looking at Batman. Second off, we're looking away from
I'm not going to lie.
Brand new thing.
I'm not going to lie. We're capitalizing on Batman fandom.
Well, also that's that's more my fandom.
That is more your fandom. Yeah. But honestly, having Batman as a first episode is a lot more welcoming to people because Batman is a universally understood and liked character. Superman is a little bit more gray now, especially with how people view him. But as it stands, God, reading Golden Age Superman, it is not something you would recognize. And we're going to get into that, but I want to say Batman, as odd as he is now, fighting
werewolf Nazi
vampires, fighting not Nazis, fighting just regular thugs and jewel guys and doctors of death, is more like Batman than Superman is at the time.
I'm inclined to agree. I think what's going to happen when we read Superman is we're going to see an intensely politicized character. And I think that is...
politicized in the sense that he's a hero of the common man, not politicized in the sense that he is... No senators, no presidents showing up.
But very much that, very clearly, this is somebody who would vote communist.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's interesting.
Oh, it is.
It's going to be very interesting to see, try to draw the comparisons between the modern sort of much more, hey, I'm ostensibly on the side of the little man. Superman, modern Superman has to be so appealing to everybody, so good that I think we're going to see a difference in the core character between that character, that golden god, and the I get things done. I punch people who are corrupt. I grab people who have been driving drunk and jump around with them for 5 minutes.
He solves problems by jumping. And I really wish I was being silly or simplifying the matter. But he picks people up and he jumps with them. And that fixes everything in a weird way. And we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, but
Batman as it stands is, if you look at the Phantom and the Shadow that are happening at the same time, which were inspirations for Bob Kane. Bill Finger came up with the idea for the cowl, much like the Phantom had, and changed the colors to black and gray. And because originally Bob Kane had them as like white and red, with like bat wings, like big wings. That and Bill
white and red
and Bill Finger said scalped cape, give him a cowl, make the colors darker. They're guys who deal with small-scale crime. I want to say that the Scarlet Horde is the biggest thing I've seen them deal with.
Easily.
Even in Superman. Superman actually, I think, deals with something a little on the same scale very early. But that's even big for Batman. Now, Batman dealing with a terrorist organization that is bigger than just Gotham.
And explicitly not just like a mafia kind of group, but something that is actually... We have a weapon of war parked over your city. That's a different...
They already built the Death Ray. This is not like stopping Freeze from building a freeze ray that will freeze Gotham. Freeze, there, I said it 4 times. It's stopping an already functioning... It's James Bonding.
Yeah.
It's being James Bond and stopping a weapon that has been used once, and then so it can never be used again. And it's very interesting, because he is a Zorro-type character, a rich, presumably aristocrat, going around bored. He's a hobbyist.
Yeah.
He's bored. He hangs out with Commissioner Gordon and then, like, solves crimes because he happens to be in the vicinity of them. And that's really strange, because Batman is now perceived, or written, as this crusading lone figure.
Obsession.
Who happens to have children who tag along with him. But yeah, he's an obsessive. And in this, it seems to be... This seems like a thing to do.
So that actually gets over into the thing that I want to kind of talk about. Just, I don't know how much of a consensus we can come to, because it's this super broad question, but is this Batman?
This is Batman in the sense that I think the animated series is Batman. The barest bones version of Batman that you can possibly get. Yes, this is Batman. Honestly, this is what Batman is to me mentally, is a guy who solves crimes. And Batman is more nuanced now, of course. He is a much more complex character. But at his core, Batman is a dude who stops things from happening while dressed as a bat. Much like the Flash is a guy who can run very fast. And Superman is a guy with a lot of powers who stops very large problems. Batman's a guy with a lot of money who stops crime. This is Batman. It's just not intelligent Batman. It's not nuanced Batman. It's not complex Batman. But it is Batman, I think.
I'm going to choose to disagree because I have a little bit of a cheat in my mind, but a definition that I think makes sense. These are Batman comics. This is not Batman as a character.
Okay, I can agree with that. In a very understandable way that, yes, this is...
Because there's not a character there. You know what he is right now? He's a sequence of verbs. He's a guy who does things. He doesn't have a character because there aren't things being set out as character moments that we would recognize. He is a guy who does things. He is a sequence of verbs that move across a page and reach a conclusion.
I see what you mean, and I agree. He's not... There is no character here.
Yeah.
And having read the rest of these, which we will go into in the next episode, I don't think there is character for the first year and a half, maybe.
Sounds about right.
Which is... I mean, I don't know if that's a fault in the writing or if that's just realizing that this guy doesn't need to be complex right now because people are buying these and we need to sell them.
Mm-hmm. It's delivering a different experience.
Yeah, the comics industry was a different thing at that time, so it's believable that they were not going like, how do we make this guy like the next big thing? It was more or less, how do we keep people reading these? How do we keep people excited with the adventure?
Although, here's an interesting question. Now I'm circling back in on myself. Like, I defined him as a sequence of verbs, but that's not... Is that a lack of character? Or is it just a character that is expressed in one particular way? The things that he does and the way he looks. Okay, so this is going to get into interesting grounds.
Which we can get into further in, but it's an interesting thing to talk about. Yeah, he currently... It doesn't have to be a lack of character to be a certain thing.
Yeah. It seems as though Batman is currently a one-dimensional character, and I would say that means it is not Batman, but he is a character, and he has some of the pieces of Batman.
He's a pulp character.
Yeah. But even aside from that, like I think there are still pieces of pulp, and there are pulp characters that still work well as characters. Like, I'd argue Indiana Jones is a good character, and not just a good character, but a character that is a character. But I think it is still reasonable to describe Batman as a sequence of verbs that express a character. It's just a very limited one. So I still stand by my these are Batman comics. This is not Batman.
Yeah, no, and that's a valid stance to have if you look at these the way that they are. We are coming now to the end of the episode. We've expanded on some of the stuff. We've given you a little bit of history and some insight into how we're going to be doing this. We're hopefully going to be a little bit more concise for you guys later on as we get this done. If not, then, buckle up. It's going to be a ride every time. And we'd like to give a nod to the podcast that kind of inspired us. Of course, if you have not been listening to Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, you should be. It's fantastic. It is a magnificent achievement in research as well as fandom and people who very much care about a series and are very good at it. Also, the Kaiju cast is very good. El Collins into it. Very good. There's also a similar podcast called The Fantastic Cast where they go through every issue of the Fantastic Four. So we're going to be kind of doing an amalgam of the things that we have seen that are very good, hopefully getting better ourselves and developing our own voice. Thank you very much for doing what you guys do. We really appreciate it. You guys have inspired us to do our own thing. Please keep doing what you do. Thank you very much. Please don't, yell at us for ripping off some stuff.
DC Detectives can be found on iTunes and Stitcher.
To stay in the know, check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr pages.
Visual aids, episode notes, and more can be found on DCDetectivespodcast.com. This was a good start. 78 years of history staring us in the face like a gorilla working the door at our favorite nightclub. We knew this was going to be a long slog. A hard road that was best traveled by professionals. We were kidding ourselves if we thought we were anything close to professional. Someone had to do it, though. Convey the emotion, the joy of discovery, the confusion that familiar faces bring when seeing them in old photos. A Herculean task. We were no demigods, just a couple of detectives.